Hey everybody, today we're going to learn about what a rock is. They're very similar to minerals. Minerals make up rocks, however, rocks don't make up minerals. So a rock is really a mixture of different minerals. However, there's not such a strict definition. So a rock could be man-made, a rock can also not be crystalline. So you can have a rock that's totally made up of glass. Even though we don't consider glass a mineral, we would consider a type of volcanic glass like obsidian to be a rock. So what is a rock? It's a group of minerals or a mixture of minerals and other solids that are kind of stuck or bound together. If the rock consists of just one mineral, we call that monomineralic. And that the prefix mono means one. So that literally means one mineral rock. All right. An example of a rock like that is rock salt. So rock salt is a rock made up of thousands of little salt crystals or salt minerals stuck together. So it's only one mineral that makes up the entire rock. It's one mineral, but thousands of that same mineral. Okay. Or, and this is more common, we call it polymineralic. So poly means many. So if any of you went to like a religious school, there's two major forms of religion. There's monotheism, that's belief in one God, and polytheism, which is the belief of many. So I'm just going over that to help you understand the prefix meaning of these words. Mono means one, poly means many. Okay, so a lot of you have a very common polymineralic rock in your house called granite. So if you look at granite, you'll see like lots of like pale pink to orange specks, gray specks, white specks, and black specks. And each of those little color specks are different minerals. All right, so there are three major rock groups. They are Led Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica. No, that's my bad joke for the day. They are igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Okay, so these are your three major rocks groups. All right, this is a diagram that we're going to spend most of the rest of this lesson learning how to read. It's the rock cycle. So the rock cycle is a model that describes how any one rock can get changed or recycled into another kind. So we're going to spend a little bit of time learning about this. Okay. So let's start with the base of the rock cycle, the bottom here, where it says magma. Okay. Actually, I'm going to use a highlighter. It's very sensitive today. So right here we have magma. Okay. If it's above the surface, it's called lava. So if that magma cooled, we would say it became a solid. So the act of becoming a solid is called solidification. So if the magma solidifies, it then becomes an igneous rock. Okay? Right here. All right. Now, how do we get magma? If a rock was to melt. So if igneous rocks melt, you get magma. But let's say you had use a different color. Let's say you had a sedimentary rock. If that rock melts, you also get magma. Okay? Or if a metamorphic rock, see metamorphic rock, melts, you get magma. So if any rock melts, it turns into magma. And then if that magma cools, it will become a solid, and we call that solidification. Then it turns into igneous rock. All right? Now let's go over how we get a sedimentary rock. So if a sedimentary rock, if any rock got broken down into pieces, the breaking down into pieces is called weathering and erosion. So rivers, rain, waves slowly break the rocks down. So a cliff can be broken into sand. We call sand a type of sediment. So pebble is sediment. Dirt, loose dirt is sediment. So when rocks get broken down into dirt, another word for dirt is sediment, we call that weathering. And then erosion is the carrying away. So an igneous rock, we look at this arrow, can get weathered and eroded into sediment. A metamorphic rock, look, a metamorphic rock doesn't have to melt. It can also get weathered and eroded into sediment. And even a sedimentary rock can get weathered and eroded back into sediment. And this is showing even sediment can be made into smaller sediment. So look, like even sediment can become smaller sediment. That's like saying a pebble can become sand if it gets crushed. Okay? Now, how do we turn that sediment into sedimentary rock? That's the next step in this rock cycle. If the sediment gets dropped off, that means deposited. And as it gets dropped off, it gets buried. So, for example, if a river is carrying sand, it's going to drop the sand off into the ocean. And then eventually another layer of sand that gets dropped off by the river will bury the previous layer of sand. And over time, you're going to get a thick layer of sand or thick with multiple layers of sand. And then this sand will get pressed together. We call that compaction. And then it can get glued. We call it cementing, cementation. So sediment will get deposited, buried, compacted, and cemented together into a sedimentary rock. Okay? Now, how do we get a metamorphic rock? If any rock, so here's sedimentary rock, let me follow this arrow. So if a sedimentary rock gets put under heat and or pressure, we call that metamorphism. It will turn into a metamorphic rock. Well, it doesn't just have to be a sedimentary rock. Look, here's an igneous rock on the right. If I put that rock under heat and pressure, it will also turn into a metamorphic rock. The act of turning into a metamorphic rock is called metamorphism. And you see this arrow all the way off on the left? So even a metamorphic rock can go under more heat and pressure. We would say it would become a higher grade metamorphic rock. Okay? So these are your different pathways in the rock cycle. I'm going to make a little interactive one. So let's say we started with magma, which means we're going to get an igneous rock. So here's a magma chamber. And if it erupts, you'll have a lava flow. And then that lava will cool. So here's a ball of lava. It cools, which is something we went over earlier. It says up here, quick cooling results in small crystals. Gases bubbling out of the lava form holes. Okay, and you can get this is a type of volcanic rock called vesicular basalt, right? Because you see vesicular means it has all these little holes or gas pockets. So if you ever see a rock that has looks like someone punched lots of little holes in it. That's evidence that it formed from a volcanic eruption. So that means it's definitely igneous. All right, next. So that's igneous. Well, what's that? That's a rain cloud. So that means it's weather. Okay, so weather is going to cause what's called weathering, which is just this unit's way of saying physically or chemically breaking down rocks. All right. So rivers will take broken down rocks called sediments and transport them. This is what's called erosion. So weathering is the breaking down of the rocks. Erosion is the carrying away. People usually use them interchangeably, but you can have weathering without erosion, but you can't have erosion without weathering, which means you can have rocks break down and go nowhere. That would just be weathering. But erosion is the moving away of the weathered rocks. Okay? So over time, a river is going to take those sediments and drop them off in a body of water. So this is a little animation showing a river dropping off sediment. Instead of saying dropping off, we say deposited. So if you drop money off in the bank, you deposited your money. So this river is depositing its sediment. And over time, you're going to have a layer of sediment burying another layer of sediment and so on and so forth. Okay? So then the weight of the layers are so much that it gets compacted and squeezed. And that pile of sand can turn into sandstone. I'll play that again. So you have a pile of sand filled with water, and as it gets compacted, the water kind of gets squeezed out, and these little dissolved minerals right here that are between the sand act like glue. We say they act like a cementing agent, and they glue the sand grains together. Okay? Making cement is kind of a man-made sedimentary rock. If you think about it, if you looked at a bag of cement, it's just loose gravel, and then you add water and you mix it, and then the water helps the cementing agent get activated and glue the sediment together. All right, so now we're leading up to metamorphic. That little process you just saw, that's subduction. And we learned about subduction. So two plates are going to collide. That's going to cause a lot of pressure and a lot of heat. So right here, that rock that's blinking is going to become a metamorphic rock. And it's very easy to identify a metamorphic rock. So the top rock here is igneous, because you see how all those different colors, the black, whites, and grays are randomly spread out? Well, this rock, if it's put under a lot of pressure, those black, whites, and grays will get flattened. We call this foliation. So if you ever see a rock that looks like it has stripes or parallel lines of different colors, that's evidence of a metamorphic rock. Okay? This is what happens. Those crystals, due to the pressure, get squeezed or flattened. And you can see how that top rock can turn into the bottom rock. All right? And the minerals align. This is called foliation. All right? Now, if the subduction continues, then it's going to melt. Okay? So that magma will melt, and the metamorphic rock might actually melt and turn back into magma, restarting the entire rock cycle. Okay? So that's this last part right here. All right? But you don't always have to go around the outside of the circle. So these little lines that are crossing the circle, we call them shortcuts in the rock cycle. All right. So we defined rock cycle. So it's a kind of a way to recycle the rocks, change one rock into another. And now we're just going to define the major groups. So igneous is a rock that forms from cooling or solidification of magma. Now you don't have to memorize that, okay, because you're going to have this chart to use anytime you like. So you just look at the arrows and follow them. So if I asked you, you can get the definition right from this chart. Igneous rock forms from magma that solidifies, solidification of magma, okay? Igneous comes from the word ignite. So if you ignite something, you light it on fire. So igneous rocks were known as the rocks of fire because guess where they come from? Volcanoes. So it's literally a rock that's on fire, and that's an igneous rock. Sedimentary is a rock that forms when sediments are pieces of rock or rock fragments that get deposited, buried, and then compacted and cemented together. Now that's a lot of steps, but they're right here. So sediments, look, follow the arrow, leaving sediments. Sediments get deposited, buried, compacted, and cemented together. So they're telling you right here, if you just read the arrows prior to the rock, it gives you the definition of that rock. Okay. So let's finish the last definition. Well, here's sediments as well. So sediments are the fragments of rock, and they form from weathering and erosion. And then you have metamorphic. So metamorphic rock is a rock that forms when any existing rock, okay, changes form due to heat and pressure. Right? So in elementary school, you probably learned about metamorphism of a caterpillar, metamorphosizes into a butterfly. So metamorphose or metamorphosizes literally means to change form. So meta, the prefix meta means change, morph means form. So metamorph literally means change form. So it's a rock that has changed form due to heat and pressure. I kind of like to think of it as a burnt rock. So like if I had a real bad burn right here on my shoulder, okay, and you saw it, it would visually look different than the surrounding skin, right? The texture would be different. The color would be different. There would be a lot of differences that you would know, ooh, something happened. That part of his skin has metamorphed, has changed form. It got burnt. Same thing with a metamorphic rock. It's really just like a burnt rock or something that has gotten so badly deformed due to pressure. All right? So that's today's unit. As always, if you have questions, I'm around. Email me or ask them at the Google Meet. Okay? And I know Dan Nidich wanted everyone to subscribe to my page. All right? Hit like or give it the thumbs up. Have a great day.